You know, I've been doing a lot of research on Fremont and the Bear Flag Revolt, and a lot of times I don't even look up their ages until the very end, and I found that Fremont was 32 years old when he, let's say, instigated all of the events that led to the Bear Flag Revolt and the conquest of California. It made me think, I'm 31 at the time that I'm recording this. Maybe I should come back next year and, I don't know, get some of my buddies together, see what I can do. Couldn't be all that bad. Maybe. Anyway, I'm here at Sonoma. We're talking about the Bear Flag Revolt of 1846, the foundation of the California Republic. Hope you'll enjoy it. So, Bear Flag Revolt. That's the whole reason for this video. It's the whole reason I made this trip right now specifically. So I am here for the 180th anniversary of the Bear Flag Revolt. This event which brought California into the United States. Which begs the question, why did California become part of the United States? What is the Bear Flag Revolt? There's a lot of context. I would honestly point you to some work that I did last year on the Mexican-American War in Corpus Christi. There's a video that starts that series which really kind of puts you in the context of all the political things that are happening between the Republic of Texas, the Republic of Mexico, and the United States. Short story is James K. Polk, along with many others, wants America to be a continental power, wants it to spread from the Atlantic to the Pacific. Gee, the traffic is terrific. And Mexico does not. Mexico wants to maintain all of its land holdings that it got when it inherited it from New Spain. Texas is not the only piece on the puzzle board. California is a major piece. In fact, people like Daniel Webster say that just the port of San Francisco Bay would be more important than all of Texas. You know what? He never had our barbecue. So I'm sure if he had some Rudy's brisket, he would change his tune real quick. But lots of people have their eyes on California, and the way that the United States is going to play this is through a man named John C. Frémont. Anyone familiar with especially Northern California, almost every town has a Fremont Street, a Fremont Park, a Fremont Monument. He is a very important figure in the story. So John C. Frémont was born in Georgia. He was the illegitimate child between a debutante and her French tutor, French-Canadian tutor. And he went to school but didn't really pay attention, and then sometimes just full on didn't go to school, but he had a real good sense of mathematics, and he gets, after several different ventures, he gets into the United States Topographical Corps to survey new territories. He's fascinated by the age of exploration. There's so much of the American continent that has yet to be categorized and yet to be mapped out, and he wants to be the one to do it. He eventually settles in Missouri, and he marries the daughter, he elopes with the daughter of a senator from Missouri, Thomas Hart Benton. And Benton is a man maybe even more excited about Manifest Destiny than James K. Polk is. So he starts sponsoring these trips for Frémont to go out into the continent and start mapping things. First, it is explicitly territory that America owns, and then it kind of goes into things next to things that America owns. So his first expedition, it leaves from Missouri, and it's to go out to the Rockies and sort of chart where the Oregon Trail, Santa Fe trails, all of that, where they stop at the Rockies. Because you go beyond that and you're in Mexico. Another very important figure in American history, plays sort of a minor role in the series that I'm doing right now, but eventually plays a major role in the conquest of California, comes into the scene during this first expedition. Frémont meets Kit Carson. For people who are fans of the American West, scholars of the American West, Kit Carson is one of those figures who looms large. So he was born in Kentucky. He moved to Missouri. His family was family friends and eventually intermarried into the Boones, so like Daniel Boone and his descendants. So he's in Boone's Lick, Missouri. He gets apprenticed to a saddler in Franklin, Missouri, and that's right at the beginnings of the Santa Fe Trail. And as a 12, 13-year-old boy, he's seeing all of these trappers with all of these amazing stories going out into the West, into this new territory, and all of the things that they do up in the mountains. And he leaves. He leaves his saddler. He didn't like it that much anyway. He goes and joins the trappers, and he becomes one of the best mountain men. He speaks Spanish, several other native languages, has all sorts of survival skills, one of the best scouts. He wasn't famous at all, really, by the time that he meets Frémont for the first expedition, but he has all of the skills that will make him famous, and a wealth of knowledge. And Frémont, who can sometimes be a little egotistical, just a little bit, credits Carson and puts him in all of his diaries and letters and reports as Kit Carson saved my hide several times, many times, more than I can count. And the whole subject of these expeditions that Frémont leads, they remind me a little bit of Caesar going out into the frontier, going out into Gaul, and then writing these reports and becoming famous from the reports. These expeditions, he goes out on them and he makes these reports with his wife. They work on editing them and writing them together and then publishing them. And that is what really brings fame to him, and brings fame to Kit Carson. So there's a first expedition. That's just to the Rockies, I'm pretty sure. Then the second expedition, they go back to the Rockies, and then they keep on going. They're still in American territory for the most part at the beginning, and they go all the way to Oregon, and then they head south, and they go into Mexican California. Kit Carson, as a young man, had already been to California through the south, and had gone all the way up through to the Sacramento Valley, trapping, and learned a lot of the territory here. So now he's coming at it with Frémont from the north. He goes to Sutter's Fort. He goes and visits the authorities in Monterey, says we're a topographical mission. This is a purely peaceful, I swear. We're just mapping. We're mapping for commerce so that we can trade with you, the fine people of the government of Mexico. And then leaves through the south, goes to Las Vegas. I think one of the reasons why there's Frémont Street in Las Vegas is because that was part of that second expedition. Makes their way across the Great Basin back to Missouri. he gets back to Washington, and the new president, President Polk, wants to see him. President Polk lays it all out. We don't know exactly what happens in the meeting. Explicitly, this third expedition, expedition number 3, will be to just go and see where the source of the Arkansas River is. Implicitly, why don't you just keep on going like you did last time and go to California? And if it so happens we're at war with Mexico by that time, which I'm pretty sure we will be, go ahead and claim California for the United States. That's implicit, not in anyone's orders. And because it's not in anyone's orders, that does create some hiccups going through in the future. But we have the third expedition. They leave in the summer of 1845. So about the same time that Zachary Taylor and Ulysses Grant and all of those people I talked about last year arrived at Corpus Christi, is the same time that Frémont is leaving from Missouri. He again calls for Kit Carson at Bent's Fort, and Kit Carson drops everything. Frémont says no one is more self-sacrificing than Kit Carson. So drops everything to join this expedition to see the source of the Arkansas River and maybe some other things if they get around to it. I think with that, I will leave us for now because I have been talking for a while. I do enjoy it so much. This is such a great story. But we'll pick back up in a minute talking about what happens once Frémont gets into California. I'm here at the Feather River Park in Yorba City, California. Let's pick back up with Frémont coming in. So Frémont goes across the Great Basin. They found the source of the Arkansas River, goes across the Great Basin, stops at the Great Salt Lake. Apparently there was an island in the lake that had lots of deer, and they went and hunted over there, and one of the Utes said, "Hey, that's all my deer." And so Frémont paid him off with some tobacco and other goods, and they kept going on their way. They hit the Sierra Nevadas, and Kit Carson, being the frontiersman that he was able to find the pass to get them through the Sierra Nevadas. They get there around December, which could be kind of risky. There was another group that hit the Sierra Nevadas around that time, and they didn't make it, or not all of them. I actually went through Donner Pass on my way here. I was actually lost at the time and was thinking, I was lost and trying to figure out where I was, and saw the sign Donner Pass. I was like, I better watch my butt or I might be eating it. So Carson goes through Carson Pass, and they make their way down the Sierra Nevadas into the Sacramento Valley. Frémont talks about the trees in California can hold they're so beautiful and large, and that all of the trees in the European forest would be jealous of how beautiful the California landscape is. Says that the acorns taste like sweet Italian chestnuts. They continue making their way through into the Sacramento Valley, meet up at Sutter's Fort. That's where everybody did. talked to John Sutter, and Sutter was saying, hey, that was fun when you came last time, but it did cause some problems. I was able to smooth things out with the Mexican authorities, but maybe don't cause too much problems this time. And Fremont's sure, yeah, we're just making maps. That's all we're doing. We're making maps. Leaves, goes to Monterey to talk to the American officials there, the English officials, the Mexican officials. In a different segment, I'll talk about what's happening on the Mexican-California government side of things. But essentially, Jose Castro, is the main person in charge in the area. He checks in with Castro, and Castro seems fine with Frémont making maps, because that's all you're doing, right, is making maps. Yeah, absolutely, I'm making maps. They then head up to Monterey, or a cliff, sort of a mountain near Monterey, overlooking the coast. And they're there talking with the native Californios. And one of the stories they tell is they are hunting and they see, he calls it a very large vulture, which I think they're talking about a California condor. They see a California condor swoop by and they fire at it and hit it in its wing. And then they grab it and they tie it to their cart, or like make a trap for it in the cart. I'm not sure. The condor's attached to the cart. And then the Californios, any description you find of the Californios says that they are the most excellent horsemen, that they are the best with the lariat and with their lances. So they're showing off to these Americans all of their horse racing and horsemanship skills. And as they're doing it, one of the Americans that's with Frémont is not paying attention, and he just he's trying to lean his arm on the cart where the condor is, and everyone starts to just look at him as he's laughing and not paying attention. They're like, you're getting close to the condor, but they're not telling him. And so he leans his elbow on the cart, and the condor's beak just comes and gets him right on the shoulder, and it takes some of his clothes from his shoulder. And then everybody had a great laugh. I'm sure that there are about 800 regulations in California today that would prevent any part of that story from taking place. After the frivolity with the condor, they head back up to the top of this mountain, and for some reason, Frémont hoists the American flag and makes it look like they're an occupation force, that they're not just making maps. And this gets back to Castro, and Castro surrounds the mountain and demands them to leave. And they're there for about 3 days, and Frémont, then the flag fell down on its own. The wind blew it, and Frémont says that this was a sign that they needed to leave. It's like, not the 200 Mexican and California forces underneath you. It was that the wind blew the flag down, time to leave. So they did, and they headed up north on their way to Oregon. Well, on the settlers in California, the Anglo-American settlers in California now don't know what to do. They have, Frémont has now come through, this is the second time, telling everybody how great he is, and that if anything should happen, I'll back you up. Not really explaining what that means. What does that backup look like? Everyone's seeing the newspapers. Everyone's seeing the reports of what's happening in Texas. Texas is annexed. The forces are going to the Rio Grande. War is imminent. What does that mean for the Anglo-Americans when war is declared between their former country and the country that they're in now? There's a cloud over everything, and here Frémont comes up and just starts stirring everything around, like kind of, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, maybe you should take it over, talking to these Anglo-American settlers. So they're stirring up a pot, and then you have the Californios who aren't very happy with Mexico to begin with, which I talk about in a different segment, but they're upset. It all comes down to Castro decides that war's imminent. We don't know what Frémont was doing, hoisting up the flag on that mountain. We need to get all of the people who are not Mexican citizens out of Mexican California. And so he issues a proclamation, I believe it's April 30th of 1846, saying exactly that. Now, it's not saying by ethnicity. If you are an Anglo-American who has become a Mexican citizen, I'm pretty sure that the proclamation said that they could stay, but it's not setting a great precedent. So even the ones who are Anglo-Americans but are Mexican citizens feel somewhat threatened. So that's sort of the cloud that's hanging over California, especially this northern Sacramento Valley, from February through May of 1846. I'm here at the state park of the Vallejo home, so the home of Mariano Guadalupe Vallejo. He's a pretty important character in all of this. So up until this time, we've been talking a lot about Frémont and Kit Carson and the Anglo perspective, an American perspective of what's been going on in California. Now I'd like to take a little bit of a look at the well, I'm not sure if they are native in the fact that they were born here in California, but they're not Native Americans. In fact, let's start off with a glossary, okay? So the Hispanic population of California is referred to as Californios. So that is the term that I'm going to be using most of the time. The Anglos would sometimes call them Spaniards, but while they are of Spanish descent, they are not representing the King of Spain. They were not born in Spain. In Mexican history, as I understand it, they would be considered Creoles, people who are of Spanish descent but born on the continent, the North American continent. For the purposes of this series, we'll be calling them Californios. Those who are from the United States, I will mostly be calling settlers or Anglo-Americans. Even though not every one of them is of English descent, it just kind of gets you in a good mindset as to what their ethnic background was. There are also Native Americans who are in California who also play a large role in the story. Nisenan, others that are fading away from my head right now. So I'll try not to use the term native because that could be confusing with the Native Americans. So talking about the Hispanic residents of California, Californios, and really the central character in this story is Mariano Vallejo. He was born on the 4th of July, early 1800s, I think around 1804, 1808. And in Monterey, he grew up along with the two other major characters in the story, which are Jose Castro and Alvarado. So Vallejo is Alvarado's uncle, therefore making him Castro's uncle-in-law. So let's explain who those people are. Let's explain it all, okay? So we've got Vallejo, Alvarado, Castro. They are all part of this landed, sort of the elite echelon of California politics. they all studied under the Spanish governor, set up their own private tutors to learn all of the latest things and the Enlightenment and science and philosophy and John Locke and Thomas Jefferson, and they were nursed with all of these and liked the philosophy of what became the Enlightenment, what became the United States, self-government, self-determination, all of those things, that throwing off the shackles of monarchy and reactionary government, believing in democracy and things like that. That's what they grew up with. They were supportive while they were pretty young when Mexico declared its independence. They grew up all throughout the Mexican War for Independence. And once Mexico became independent of Spain, Vallejo entered his political career. In addition to all this, he's getting this from Sola, the Spanish governor, but he's also getting it, I believe the man's name is Hartman. He is an Englishman who is in Monterrey and runs the port there. So he's learning English, he's learning French, he's learning all of these ideas from the Enlightenment, and gets a pretty good idea of what the American Revolution was about, and likes the ideals that propelled the American Revolution. This is pretty important as we go forward. So all three of them, Vallejo, Alvarado, and Castro, are in the same milieu, being exposed to these same ideas. As I've said a couple times before, there are a lot of similarities between the Texas Revolution and what's going on in California. Mexico is in a continuous state of revolution. It is a continuous state of democratically elected governments, centralists come in, dictatorships form. A lot of times it's Santa Anna comes back. Somehow Santa Anna returned. But even if it's not Santa Anna, it's some other centralist, and trying to figure out the questions of, you're now left with this empire that Spain used to have here, and they're now gone. And how do you govern? And how much authority do you give to the locals to govern their own affairs? And they would say, for too long, all decisions were being made in Mexico City. So it would take months for all the way up here in California for anything to get done, because everything had to be rubber stamped through Mexico City. And then by the time that decision got back up here, the government of Mexico City had changed over. So just about the same time that Texas declares its independence in 1836, California, a few months later, in November of 1836, they also declare independence because of the continuous succession of revolts and the lack of any decisions or good decision making being done in Mexico City, according to their eyes. That Declaration of Independence was supported by Vallejo, it was supported by Alvarado, it was supported by Castro. That's why it's so interesting that the shoe gets put on the other foot in 1846. There are other developments that happened throughout the 1830s and 40s. In 1840, there are a lot of Anglo-Americans that are coming in, and they are thinking that they want to do to California what just happened with Texas. They want to make California an independent country, maybe with them being in charge. Vallejo leads the quelling of these ideas. And one of the men involved in the Anglo-American perspective of trying to overthrow the Mexican government here in 1840 was stuttering Zeke Merritt. During his capture, Vallejo actually strikes Merritt on his head with the flat of his sword. So that'll come up again when we get further into the Bear Flag Revolt. 1842, the government in Mexico is back in Santa Anna's hands. Santa Anna doesn't want the Californians to elect their own governor. Again, Stop me if this is sounding familiar. So he appoints a governor Mitchell Terrena, and we'll talk a little bit, just very briefly about that in terms of John Sutter over at Sutter's Mill actually supports Mitchell Terrena against the native Californians, or the Californios. So even though Sutter got everything he wanted from the Californios, from Alvarado, Sutter turned and went towards the centralists, went towards Mitchell Terrena because he thought he could get a better deal out of it. That just ended. So that would be 1845 is when this big strife between the centralist-backed Mitchell Terrena and the democratically elected governor, liberal Californio government, they come back into power. They come into power under Pio Pico. They're upset. Mexico's been a country for about 25 years and has never been stable, according to people on the exterior, at the fringes of the frontier. And California is on everyone's mind. Every other empire is looking at California and thinking the resources, the access to ports, this is prime real estate. So the Russians are interested in trying to take it over, the English, the French, all of it. Vallejo is actually stationed here in Sonoma. He creates the town of Sonoma in 1835, has the fort garrisoned here because he is going to be the first line of defense if the Russians come in from the north. In the spring of 1846, the people of California are trying to decide what they're going to do. This is going to sound very familiar to what happened in Texas. They know that they can't do it on their own. They know that they can't defend all this against the Mexican government on their own, but they don't want to be a part of Mexico anymore. So what are they going to do? Pio Pico's saying, maybe we should ally with the French. Which is interesting because John Sutter is also thinking the same thing, that we should align with the French or the English, but not the Americans. Vallejo, on the other hand, is saying the Americans are our best bet. They are our neighbors, and they actually believe in the philosophies that we believe in, self-determination, Enlightenment ideals, government by the consent of the governed, all of these things we share. So we can't do it on our own, I agree, but let's embrace the Americans. Look at what they're doing, crossing over the Sierra Nevadas, crossing the desert, hardy pioneer people coming here and making a life of it. These are the kinds of people that we want to be arm in arm with. That idea that Vallejo expresses is about the same time that Frémont comes in to California. So all of these things are bubbling at the same time. There is resentment on the hand of the Californios, the Hispanic population. They do not want to be a part of Mexico anymore. They have thought in the past that they want to be their own country, but they don't think that they have enough people, enough arms to actually throw off the Mexican government. And we know how the Anglo-American settlers are feeling about all this. And so then you get to April of 1846, and Castro, remember, is Vallejo's uncle-in-law. Yes, he is the uncle-in-law. He is the uncle of Alvarado. Alvarado is the father-in-law to Castro. Castro is the head of the military in this area, everything north of Yerba Buena. And Castro orders, because of the things that Frémont did, Castro orders that all of the Anglo-Americans that are not Mexican citizens need to leave. And possibly all Anglo-Americans, even if they are Mexican citizens, need to leave and forego any property that they have here. That's not what Vallejo wants. So there, and not everyone, it's messy, it's chaotic. Castro at one point, at least according to Frémont, if Frémont can be trusted, Frémont says that Castro came to him. So the main antagonist in this whole story came to Frémont and said, we should join forces to overthrow Pio Pico, because Pio Pico is from Southern California and we want to hold on to power here in Northern California. Frémont doesn't link up with Castro, and then they become antagonists. There is strife between Alvarado, Castro, and Vallejo, not just because of where they think the alliances between California and the rest of the world should be, but also Alvarado and Castro think that Vallejo is jealous of their power and wants to take power for himself. That's the mess that's going on the California side, and because they're not providing a united front, this could have gone in so many different ways if anyone had seen the similarities with each other, but they didn't. And so that's the mess on the California side as we get into the summer of 1846. I'm here at the Frémont Monument, just outside the town of Sutter, California. Behind me are the Sutter Buttes. This is the approximate location of where Frémont camped from late May until about June, the first week of June of 1846. Frémont had been forced out of Monterey. He goes up towards Oregon. There's lots of things that happen with the native peoples there, and then comes back down after hearing reports that General Castro has ordered all Anglo-Americans to evacuate California immediately. Frémont starts to send out letters to the Anglo-American settlers telling them to meet him here at the camp at Sutter's Butte. When Frémont arrives here, he talks about it's bucolic. This was maybe the best camp that the whole expedition ever had. The Delaware Indians that he brought with him absolutely loved it. They would go out onto the buttes and hunt up to 60 elk, bear, deer a day. Some of the Delaware, he said, thought that they had died and gone to their happy hunting ground. He talks about it being very cool mornings, very warm afternoons, but with some cool breezes coming through. I'm here in the early morning and I can attest that it is a very comfortable morning. Frémont has sent out these messages for the settlers to come. So there's people who are coming from Sutter's Fort, there's people who are coming from up the Sacramento River, all meeting here that first week of June of 1846. Frémont counts as his number one man among the settlers, a man that they call Stuttering Zeke Merritt. If you had any kind of affliction in the 1800s, that was going to be your nickname. In Texas, we have Deef Smith. In California, they had Stuttering Zeke. Frémont gives a very robust description of the man, that he was raw-boned, not one to ask questions when given orders, someone to get a job done, and my number one field lieutenant among the settlers. Stuttering Zeke has gathered a group here to meet with Frémont. Again, Frémont is a U.S. Army officer. He is not aware that the Mexican-American War has started. So he's operating under the supposition that the United States is not currently at war with Mexico, and he does not have the authority to start a war with Mexico. So he is advising the Anglo-American settlers on the best way to conduct these things that are happening to them by Castro. And he comes up with a 3-part plan to attack the problems that he sees with Castro. Number one is to steal horses from the Mexican military, that the settlers will steal these horses, bring them to Fremont. There's lots of different viewpoints on this. Fremont needs these supplies to get back to the United States anyway. So he sees these Anglo-American settlers as being the perfect tool to use to acquire these tools. So step one, steal horses. Step two, go to Sonoma and kidnap General Vallejo, Vallejo's brother, a couple other high-ranking officials, bring them back to Fremont. Number three, wait for Castro to attack because you've stolen his horses and his men. Win that skirmish. Then I believe he wants to, I guess step four would be take the prisoners, the hostages, take Vallejo all the way back to the United States, across the Great Basin, leaving the settlers here to their own wits, while he goes to the United States with the prisoners, gets the authority to attack California, and comes back. And we're not talking about a transcontinental railroad or airplane that you can get this done in a week. That's going to take months to get that authority and come back. So that's his plan. For the Anglo-American settlers part, some of them are on board with this. They think Fremont is a godsend because he represents the American military. He represents what they want. They want to become part of the Union. So like Stuttering Zeke, that's why Fremont talks about Zeke as his number one field lieutenant. He is on board 100%. But others are not. One of them being William B. Ide. So Ide looks at this plan and is horrified. He says, you want us to become a bunch of robbers? You want us to attack this issue by stealing and through treachery and all of these horrible things? I want no part of this. This is not honorable. Well, Fremont is not used to people standing up to him, and he goes off the handle. He is very obstinate to Ide and says, I will not take this kind of rudeness in my camp, and he gets up and he walks away. Well, he walks away. The rest of the settlers gather together, and they go up to Ide and they say, so what should we do after we take the horses? Because that's still going to happen. We got to take these horses. So they say, what are we going to do next? If not this plan of take prisoners all the way back to the United States, what are we going to do? And Ide says, well, if we're going to take these horses, we are making a breach. History will forever change. There will be a breach between what happened before and what happened afterwards. Whatever Anglo-Americans are in California will now be enemies of the Mexican army. If we are going to make this breach, let us widen the breach on to Sonoma. Declare independence. And all of the men that are around in the camp and listening to this are filled with patriotic fervor that this is a far better plan to them than going on to whatever Fremont wants and leaving the settlers here to their own devices while Fremont leaves. So they hear this plan from Ide. They say, hurrah, hurrah for independence. And Ide and Fremont will not see each other again until June 25th. So nearly 3 weeks. And what a difference 3 weeks is going to make. This is the actual monument right off the side of the road that commemorates the camp that Major General, well, who would later become Major General John Frémont, made in that last part of May, early part of June, 1846. He leaves this camp and heads back near Sutter's Fort. One thing that I forgot to mention was the reaction among Frémont's men when Ide gave this impassioned speech, not to just steal and run away into the night, but to actually declare independence. According to Ide, Kit Carson says, I want to join you guys. I want to leave Frémont's forces and go on to Sonoma with the rest of you. And he even requests from Frémont permission to leave and join the settlers. And Frémont says no, possibly for ego reasons, but also possibly because Frémont is playing this political game of diplomatic game that technically America, according to his knowledge, America has not declared war against Mexico. If Kit Carson joins the settlers, that will be declaring war against Mexico. Although all of this is a ploy to try and make sure that America declares war on Mexico, it can get pretty confusing, and it's pretty confusing for Ide, which is why he has such friction and animosity, but respectful friction. He always says honorably, but respectfully, this idea is crazy. Anyway, that's the last bit that I wanted to make sure that I told you all, is that according to Ide, Kit Carson was all in going on to Sonoma, but was held back. He did not get permission to do so. The next step in all of this is the actual taking of the horses. That happens under Zeke Merritt. He does Frémont's plan. It's a great story. So Zeke Merritt gets his group of the Anglo-Americans. They go to the camp where these horses are being held, and they surprise them in the middle of the night and take the horses. And the Mexican officers are very offended. And they say that we should have the that this was not fair because you attacked us in the middle of the night. If it was a fair fight, we would have won. And Zeke Merritt says, I'll give you a fair fight. I'll give you all the horses back right now, and I'll go 100 yards that way and attack you from the front, and I'll still get the horses. And the Mexican officers say, no, we don't want that. And then as Zeke Merritt rides back towards this camp, he shouts back at the Mexican officers, tell Castro if he wants his horses, he can come and take them. Something very similar to what happened at the beginning of the Texas Revolution. This is really the first action of the Anglo-American citizens of California for their revolution, is the stealing of these horses. And but I think that California should have its own come and take it flag, but instead of a cannon, it has a horse on it. Anyway, lots of parallels between what happened in California and what happened in Texas. That's it for this portion, the outset of what's going to become the Bear Flag Revolt. Those seeds are sown, or I don't know what metaphor to use. The straw on the camel's back is really happening right here among the buttes outside of Sutter, California. Well, that wraps up this episode of Chandler's Travels. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, tell a friend. Every little bit helps us in growing the channel so I can take even more of you along with me on my journeys. Until next time, vaya con Dios.